Hello everyone, it's Jen. Welcome back to another video for Heffy Doodle. Today I'm creating 5 cards featuring the Chimply the Best stamp set. There's 4 little chimps in this set, 5 sentiments, and then there's some vines and some bananas. I also have the coordinating die set, and I had a bunch of these little critters and the bananas and vines and the little trophy colored up like probably over a year and a half now from when this was a new release stamp, and I really wanted to get them on some cards. So I thought that this would make a great multiple card video, and maybe if you had some images already colored in your stash, this would inspire you to create some cards. So I'm just laying out all the images to make sure I have at least one of everything and I have multiples of them. I'm also going to be using the Doodlebug at the Zoo paper pad. I have the adorable little chimp papers, this plaid one, which I don't end up using. I have the leaves, and then this striped diagonal pattern and another pattern paper that I don't end up using. Now this paper pad is still available, and I will link to it below in case you're interested, as well as all of the other products that I'm using in the video today. So for the first card, I wanted to have the chimp pattern paper as my main focal point for the paper itself. The colored image is obviously going to be the focal point of the card, but I really wanted that sweet chimp paper to really shine in the background. So I'm using an MFT sketch here. It's number 475. For this design, you can see I have the leaf pattern paper cut on a diagonal on the bottom 1/3 of this panel, and then I've cut a stitch circle using my Heffy Doodle stitch circle dies here, and I'm going to use the sentiment, "You are Chimply the best." I'm just using my scissors to help position that. I find sometimes the acrylic stamps stick to my nails, and so that's a good tip if you find that as well. The steel from the scissors, it doesn't stick to them, so you can get it in the perfect placement. So I stamped that with my Versafine Clair Nocturne ink, and then I hung my little chimp onto the vine. I simply just snip. There's a little piece of paper that connects the tail to the foot, but I just snip that with my scissors, and then you can have him actually hanging on to the vine. Using my Barely Art glue, I'm just going to get that into position, and then I'm going to have him holding one of the bananas in his left paw. So once that's all adhered down, I can go ahead and just trim off those sides of the vines that are overhanging my circle. That will make it look like it fits perfectly onto my little circle here. Now, if you wanted some dimension, you could pop the circle up on some foam tape or some fun foam. I decided to make flat cards for this video. Sometimes it's nice to just have a bunch of cards that you can easily mail without extra postage. To finish this off, I added some white gel pen for some highlights, and then we can move on to the second card, which I am using another MFT sketch. This is number 399. So for this one, I'm using the diagonal stripe pattern paper for the back, and then I'm going to use this horizontal stripe here of the chimp pattern paper that I had left over from the first card. Again, I'm going to be using a stitch circle here for the focal point for my images, and this one I'm using the sweet little chimp, and the coordinating die actually cuts out around his paws so he can hold either the banana or the trophy that comes in the stamp set, or whatever you want him to have in his hands. I'm going to use the sentiment, "It's your birthday, go bananas." There's some really fun sentiments, and actually for these set of cards, I use 4 out of the 5 that are in the stamp set, so you got a good look at all the sentiments in action. So once I have that stamped out, I'm going to add my vine, figure out where I want my little chimp to sit, and then I decided because the sentiment is "Go bananas," I needed more than one banana. Plus, as you saw at the beginning of the video, I had a ton of bananas already colored up, so why not use them? So I'm just going to play around here with placement. This will change as I go. I do want the larger bunch of bananas to the right hand side just to kind of balance out that side of the circle. So I'm going to place my vine down first and then have my little chimp sitting right in the center. I'll add the bunch of bananas to the back of the chimp, and I play around with placement here a little bit. It's okay if you don't get it where you want it the first time. Just don't press heavily down until you know it's in the position where you want it to end up. And then I decided for this single banana that I was going to put it hanging down the left-hand side towards the sentiment to try to draw your eye towards the sentiment. And then I can go ahead and press everything in place. I did find it easier to use my reverse tweezers for some of the smaller pieces just to help with getting that into place. Sometimes your fingers can get in the way, so the reverse tweezers are often really helpful. So again, I'm going to trim off the edges of the vines here, and then I'm going to place my circle to the bottom left-hand side. I just think that's so cute. I love using the stitch circles to really have fun with the images and create a focal point. And I really loved just the bright white behind the images, so they popped off the paper. I'm using my black glaze pen here for the eyes and then added a little white gel pen detail. And then we can move on to card number 3. So for card number 3, for the back panel, I'm using my Heffy Doodle stitched rectangle dies. And then I used my rounded rectangle dies as well. So I chose 2 of those, and I have the white cardstock to the back. And I'm not sure if you can see in the video, but it does have a stitch detail. And then I used the smaller one with the leaf pattern paper. I'm going to position that in the middle of the card, but a little bit higher towards the top because I want my sentiment to be on the little chimp pattern paper to the bottom. For this card, I'm going to have 2 of the chimps. I'm going to have the vine from the sort of bottom left up to the top right with one of the chimps hanging down. And then I'm going to have that cute little chimp holding his banana sitting on the vine as well. So for this one, I just had to play around with where I wanted my chimp's tail to hang on to the vine. And once I figured that out, I could go ahead and glue that and then get my little chimp glued. I'm going to have him holding one of the peeled bananas, which I think is so cute. So it's like he's swinging on his vine, enjoying his little banana afternoon treat. And then I have the little chimp on the top with the peeled banana as well. And I am going to tuck him with some of the leaves in front of him just for some added interest. So for this card, I'm using the Let's Hang Out Soon sentiment. I just stamped that on some white cardstock. And then I'm going to offset that to the bottom right-hand side of the card. I did add the black glaze pen and the white gel pen details to that card as well, just to finish it off and add some highlights. So for this next card, I'm using the MFT sketch number 277, and it has these 3 smaller stitched circles on the card panel. So for this one, I'm using my stitched rectangle die again to cut out that chimp pattern paper. I used up pretty much all 3 of those chimp papers that I had left over. And I'm just going to add 1 monkey to each of these circles. So for the ones that are hanging, I am going to add a vine. And this little banana was giving me a bit of trouble. It did not want to stay in place, but I wanted it to be between his 2 paws. I just thought it looked cute, like he was holding it, and you could see it was sticking to my paper, didn't want to stick to the actual paper, stuck to the nozzle of the glue bottle, but I eventually got it in place. And then I could go ahead and adhere my little chimp. Now this was the last of the vines that I had left, so after I trim this off, I'm going to use that largest piece for the next little chimp here that's hanging by the tail, and you can see this is where I'm just snipping that little connector piece. Now for this one, I had to play around a little bit more. I thought I was going to have it kind of the way it naturally flows, and then I decided, well, it'd be fun to kind of flip it upside down, but it doesn't fit on that stitch circle just because I have cut it off from the other one. So I had to turn it back around and then just make sure that I was going to have enough here to have it hanging off both sides. Again, just so it looked kind of continuous going off either side. It just gives that illusion of continuity when you're able to trim the sides a little bit. So I am going to do that now that that glue's had a little bit of time to dry. And then I'm going to take the bananas and put that into the left hand of my little chimp. And once I get that in place, I can glue the rest of my image down. And then I'm going to take the next little chimp. He's so cute. He was the only one I had left of the image where he's kind of standing like he has his paws open, his arms open. And I'm going to have him on the third and final stitched circle. I've got the peeled banana in his hand, and I'm going to put him more towards the bottom because, as you can see here as I'm laying this out, the top circle will overlap the one that he's on. So I wanted to leave enough room for that. And as I said, I'm using a sketch for inspiration. I love using sketches when I'm doing multiple card videos. I just find it helps with creativity and giving ideas that may not pop into my head. So there's the layout for that card. I decided not to add a sentiment. I'll add the sentiment to the inside. And then we can move on to the fifth and final card. So I only had a few vertical strips here. I think in that second card I said horizontal strip, but I meant vertical strip. So I have two of the chimp pattern papers, and then I have a piece of the diagonal stripe pattern paper. And I wanted the chimp paper to be on either side, so I laid those down first. And then I'm going to kind of position this stripe pattern paper as far over to the right as I can without there being a gap in that chimp pattern paper on the the left hand side. So that gives me a smaller kind of peek through of the chimp pattern paper to the right hand side, and then a larger area to the left. And then this is, where I have the last vine that I had colored up. I'm getting my cards mixed up. I just made them too, so it's funny how quickly you forget. But this is the last one that I had, and I am going to trim off the sides, and I'm going to use the excess that I've cut off, and I'm going to fill in my little scene a bit more. So adding the bunch of bananas to the bottom, and I have him, the little chimp here, holding that in between his paws. And then I'm going to trim this. Because I had it up so high, I have a little bit more of the vines left over with the leaves. So I thought, why not try to see if I could add those to my little focal circle here. So play with that a little bit. And then the sentiment that I'm using is swinging by to say hi, which I thought was pretty fitting for this cute little chimp. And for that one, I'm using the smallest of the scalloped frame dies by Heffy Doodle. And I love how it's got the scalloped edge, but it also has the stitch detailing, and this sentiment actually fits perfect in it. So once I have all my little vines in place, I can go ahead and just trim off the rest of that, and I really like how that filled in a lot of that circle panel. So I thought maybe I could try to use some more of the bananas that I had. I ended up placing this by the sentiment. So I'm going to add that little banana to the bottom right hand side of my scalloped sentiment. I think that looks cute, kind of brings your eye down towards the sentiment. And then to finish off this card, I will do the black glaze pen for the eyes. If you're not familiar with the black glaze pen, it just gives a raised impression. I love it. And then I also added some white gel highlights on my little chimp as well. So I'm going to slow this down and show you all 5 of the cards. I hope this inspires you to get some of those images you might have colored up in your stash onto cards. I had a ton of fun with these. This pattern paper was perfect for these images. Here's a look at the Copic marker color map that I used to color the chimp, the bananas, and the vines. This will also be located on the corresponding Heffy Doodle blog post if you want to get a better look at that picture. So thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to subscribe and to hit the like button, and I'll see you really soon in the next video. Take care, everyone. Bye.